Greetings, Divine Ones. Let's get going today with Shelter in the Storm, A Course in Miracles, Lesson 24. Today we're still in Chapter 2, Part 5. This one's called The Function of the Miracle Worker. Before miracle workers are ready to undertake their function in this world, it is essential that they fully understand the fear of release. Otherwise, they may unwittingly foster the belief that release is imprisonment, a belief that is already very prevalent. This misconception arises in turn from the belief that harm can be limited to the body. That is because of the underlying fear that the mind can hurt itself. None of these errors is meaningful, because the miscreations of the mind do not really exist. This recognition is a far better protective device than any form of level confusion, because it produces correction at the level of the error. It is essential to remember that only the mind can create, and that correction belongs at the thought level. To amplify an earlier statement, spirit is already perfect, and therefore does not require correction. The body does not exist except as a learning device for the mind. This learning device is not subject to errors of its own because it cannot create. It is obvious, then, that inducing the mind to give up its miscreations is the only application of creative ability that is truly meaningful. Magic is the mindless or the miscreative use of mind. Physical medications are forms of spells, but if you are afraid to use the mind to heal, you should not attempt to do so. The very fact that you are afraid makes your mind vulnerable to miscreation. You are therefore likely to misunderstand any healing that might occur, and because egocentricity and fear usually occur together, you may be unable to accept the real source of the healing. Under these conditions, it is safer for you to rely temporarily on physical healing devices, because you cannot misperceive them as your own creations. As long as your sense of vulnerability persists, you should not attempt to perform miracles. I have already said that miracles are expressions of miracle-mindedness, and miracle-mindedness means right-mindedness. The right-minded neither exalt nor depreciate the mind of the miracle worker or the miracle receiver. However, as a correction, the miracle need not await the right-mindedness of the receiver. In fact, its purpose is to restore him to his right mind. It is essential, however, that the miracle worker be in his right mind, however briefly, or he will be unable to re-establish right-mindedness in someone else. The healer who relies on his own readiness is endangering his understanding. You are perfectly safe as long as you are completely unconcerned about your readiness, but maintain a consistent trust in mine, meaning Jesus's. Trust in Jesus. He's got this. If your miracle working inclinations are not functioning properly, it is always because fear has intruded on your right-mindedness and has turned it upside down. All forms of not right-mindedness are the result of refusal to accept the atonement for yourself. If you do not accept it, you are in a position to recognize that those who need healing are simply those who have not realized that right-mindedness is healing. We'll leave it there for today. We'll finish that part of chapter 2 tomorrow. Let's move to lesson 24. I do not perceive my own best interests. In no situation that arises do you realize the outcome that would make you happy. Therefore, you have no guide to appropriate action and no way of judging the result. What you do is determined by your perception of the situation, and that perception is wrong. It is inevitable, then, that you will not serve your own best interests. Yet, they are your only goal in any situation which is correctly perceived. Otherwise, you will not recognize what they are. If you realized that you do not perceive your own best interests, you could be taught what they are. But in the presence of your conviction that you do know what they are, you cannot learn. The idea for today is a step toward opening your mind so that learning can begin. The exercises for today require much more honesty than you are accustomed to using. A few subjects, honestly and carefully considered in each of the 5 practice periods, which should be undertaken today, will be more helpful than a more cursory examination of a larger number. 2 minutes are suggested for each of the mind-searching periods which the exercises involve. The practice periods should begin with repeating today's idea, followed by searching the mind with eyes closed for unresolved situations about which you are currently concerned. The emphasis should be on uncovering the outcome you want. You will quickly realize that you have a number of goals in mind as part of the desired outcome, and also that these goals are on different levels and often conflict. In applying the idea for today, name each situation that occurs to you. Then enumerate carefully as many goals as possible that you would like to be met in this resolution. The form of each application should be roughly as follows. In the situation involving Susan, I would like da to happen and da to happen, and so on. Try to cover as many different kinds of outcomes as may honestly occur to you, even if some of them do not appear to be directly related to the situation or even to be inherent in it at all. If these exercises are done properly, you will quickly realize that you are making a large number of demands of the situation which have nothing to do with it. You will also recognize that many of your goals are contradictory, that you have no unified outcome in mind, and that you must experience disappointment in connection with some of your goals, however the situation turns out. After covering the list of as many hoped-for goals as possible for each unresolved situation that crosses your mind, say to yourself, I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation, and go on to the next one. Okay, so following our initial 2-minute practice session, after doing lesson 24, we move to a year of forgiveness, Jesus commentary for each of the lessons, each of the 365 lessons. Alright, so lesson 24. I do not perceive my own best interests. You are blessed beings, indeed. I am that one you know as Jesus. This is how you get yourself into a lot of trouble. This conviction that you know what makes you happy. We draw your attention again to the many conditioning processes you have been through in your society. For example, your car manufacturers have spent inordinate amounts of money advertising very sexy cars in very sexy locations, driven by very sexy people. If you feel bored, unattractive, or lonely, the multitude of car advertisements you have stockpiled in your memory, they are not in your conscious memory, but they are there, will rise to the surface as a solution to your feelings, or for your feelings. Marketing is very well done in your society, and one of the great burdens that you, as trained consumers in this society, face. Excuse me, I have an itchy nose area. We speak in A Course in Miracles about profound spiritual principles. There are practical demonstrations every day of ordinary things and situations that use and apply these principles. For example, you can look at your diets. You are constantly bombarded by commercials for food-like products. We will not even call them food. Pizza is an example. You see those ads with the big strings of cheese and the happy people drinking Coke and scarfing down pizza. When you get hungry, those images that have coursed through your consciousness rise to the top. A bowl of organic blueberries will not be what comes to mind, because you make the cake of your day from the ingredients you have in your consciousness. That means, as you sit on your couch watching programs programming you, you voluntarily use your free will to allow that commercial into your mind, which makes you complicit in contaminating the ingredients for the cake you make today. We want you to know that this is where a lot of your inability to determine your own best interests comes from. The interventions you feel coming from Spirit these days, the many channelings and messaging programs about transforming your mind and turning toward love are amplified, because we have to call you back from the precipice of the intense mental and emotional manipulation you are subject to in your society. No, it is going to take some time for us to turn your mind around, eliminate, and get you to reprogram yourself. Once again, we ask for your patience in this process. The marketers, corporations, churches, and schools that have trained you have been exceedingly patient and exceedingly determined, and they have spent a lot of money to get you where they want you. You must now become exceedingly determined. You don't need to spend a lot of money. No money, in fact. However, you must now become as determined as they are. We do not ask you to judge them. We do not ask you to hate them. We are saying they are clever, and they have used these very principles against you. Now it is time to turn from their food to our nutritious plan of healing your mind. Let us not look out there anymore. Let us turn these programs off. Let us return to the simple clarification process here. Excuse me. Oh, something's in my nose, it's tickling me. Let us turn these programs off. Let us return to the simple clarification process here. Get out in nature as much as you can. Read some good books. Do some creative projects. Connect with your family and friends in loving ways. Begin the reclamation process of taking back your free will. I am that one you know as Jesus, and it is a very important thing for you to do this year. The shenanigans, games, and chaos that you witness out in the world will upset you if you seek peace out there. You won't find it out there. It is the result of a lot of negative programming and fearful minds. Come back to me. Come back to peace. Come back to love a few times each day, even today, and demonstrate your determination to have a peaceful mind. We will speak to you again tomorrow. Namaste, dearest ones. Much love.